There's not enough sugar in that. Welcome back. Merry Christmas or Happy Boxing Day or even Happy New Year's Eve, depending on when I get this video out. I'm aware that most people already watched Queen's Gambit a while ago and already got all their thoughts out and stuff, but I didn't have a channel then, so I have a lot of thought built in my head just rolling around. And I would like to be able to discuss them somehow. Oh yeah, by the way, before I forget, I'm a very small, organic, locally grown, vegetarian, lactose intolerant channel. If any of that is appealing to you at all, please subscribe. All right, so Queen's Gambit. I'm assuming that if you're clicking into this video, you probably already know about it, but to give you a basic rundown, it's about Beth Harmon. She's an orphaned girl. We love an orphan who's a chess prodigy. The series basically follows her journey through the world of competitive chess. And it's also based on a book. I didn't read it, and I don't plan to, but you know, I just thought I should point it out. Originally, I'm gonna be honest, I was intrigued by the concept because it kind of sounded like an anime to me. And it's like, you know what? Is there even a chess anime? Like, they have an anime about like tennis, and no one plays tennis. Also, Anya Taylor-Joy is really hot as a redhead. So the first thing I want to talk about, like from the first episode, they basically established a major conflict throughout the entirety of the season. Her addiction, her pill addiction, because they feed them like uppers and downers at the orphanage, and she gets addicted to the downers that they take at nighttime. By taking the tranquilizers or whatever, her mind is able to see the patterns and view things in different ways and whatever. And it's like, okay, I understand. But also, it was kind of like hinted at that she was like kind of a math prodigy. And like in the flashbacks with her mom, you also see that her mom is always like counting numbers and finding patterns and things. It kind of feels like the tranquilizers were almost brought in as a way to explain how she's such a genius at chess. But it's like, if she already has like the math prodigy angle going for her, why does she need the tranquilizers? Like, it just kind of has like this half-hearted addiction arc throughout the entirety of this series. It's not like it was really given much thought into how it was like presented anyway. Like at the end, she just kind of gets over it, you know, by believing in herself really hard. And it's like overcoming addiction is like a very long, strenuous journey. It's involved. It's not, you never really end the journey, you know. It just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, I feel like it was such an unnecessary plot point. I guess because then they're like, what would the conflict have been? But you can still have conflict without giving the lead like an addiction to overcome. Because I think a problem with the series is that Beth never really has a lot of like stiff competition, partly because she is like a math prodigy and people keep underestimating her, but also because like anytime she's kind of feeling like a little challenged, she'll just pop a pill and magic mind her way out of it. But it's like, I think that even though I'm like, listen, I've played a few games of chess, I don't know how to play chess. But they never really went into the gameplay elements of chess, which is fine. But I'm just saying, like, if they focused more on the gameplay, explained a little bit more, like, you know, give the audience a little bit more credit, and then set up like actual rivals for her that would present a challenge, and kind of also show the audience like the process of how she like works through their strategies and kind of like studies them, because they show her reading a lot of books throughout the entirety of the series, but it's basically like cut up montages of her like reading a bunch of books. Now she just knows it, you know? And it's like, you can give the audience some credit. We can learn some chess terms. Like, that would be great. And I hate to keep bringing anime back into this, but if you've seen any sports anime, it's basically, maybe not any sports anime because some are better than others, a lot of them will introduce gameplay elements to the audience, and it does sometimes assume that the audience doesn't know anything about the gameplay, which is fine, because I think that's just like a part of the thing when you get into like any kind of media that's about any kind of gameplay, whether it be sports or board games, but I don't even think that would have necessarily slowed down the plot at all if you just like introduced the groundwork of chess so that you could also then in turn set up an actual challenges to Beth's skill set and how she overcomes those challenges. Because then as it stands, the primary conflict throughout the series isn't really Beth versus any particular character, I guess, other than like the Russian guys at the end of the series, and then kind of Benny, but kind of not. Like, I feel like you kind of know that she's never really, it's never really gonna be a thing. So her primary rival is basically herself or her addiction in like more concrete terms. But it's like, that's not, I mean, to me, that's not very compelling. Like, that's not a compelling narrative, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's like, I'm just so jaded by like this modernist storytelling where the protagonist's conflict is against themselves. And it's like, can we please just like throw some rivals in there? I love seeing relationships between people, especially like rivalry relationships. If you've watched my glass mask video, you know I love complicated relationships that have a lot of nuance and subtlety and like respect for one another. Like, that's what I love, and that's what I was missing in Queen's Gambit. I just wasn't that interested in them, I guess. Maybe that's why. Maybe you all feel differently. Like, did y'all like Harry and Benny? I liked them. I'm not gonna say I didn't like them. I didn't really feel like they were characters. They were kind of just there to prop up Beth. But let me know if you feel differently. My next conflict, so in the first couple episodes when you see Beth at the orphanage, you're introduced to Jolene. She's also an orphan. She's been there for like a little bit longer than Beth has. I have a problem with the fact that after Beth got adopted, it kind of seemed like Jolene just like was gone out of her head. Like, she just never thought about her ever again. And it's like literally not even a mention. She doesn't even kind of fleetingly think, I wonder what Jolene's doing. How is Jolene? Like, maybe I can send Jolene a letter. She sends Mr. Scheibel a letter, I mean, to ask him for money to join a competition. But like, she doesn't think to send Jolene a letter. She doesn't think to call. Like, what? And then she has like, Beth has her big climactic breakdown, which always happens in the narrative at this point. And of course, Jolene comes out of the blue to come save her. And I'm just like, you don't deserve Jolene to save you. Like, you haven't thought about her once at all. So like, she helps her basically get out of her funk, her depression funk. Which is like, that's fine. Friends can do that for you. Usually it's like the friendship is usually based on something more than just showing up for your friend who hasn't contacted you in years. That really was like, my main goal is to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody. They play tennis, and then Beth is freaking out because she can't secure funding to go to the Russian tournament or whatever. And then Jolene is like, you can take some of my hard-earned savings to go fly off to Russia to compete in chess. And like, oh, I know it's like, okay, well, she's gonna get a return on her investment because of course Beth is gonna win. But that's a big chance to be taking on someone for your life savings. Like, and Jolene's not a real person, right? Like, this is a story. It was written by writers. So they chose to write Jolene completely out of the story and then have her come back in like the third act to basically save Beth by giving up her entire savings that she's been saving up for the duration of the show, the duration of which Beth did not try contacting her or even think of her once. Could not be me, I'll tell you that. And then the thing that pissed me off is like, they try to be self-aware about it. Like, oh, because Beth is like, you're my guardian angel. And then Jolene is like, oh, fuck you, like, we're friends. Friends do that for each other, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, Jolene, friends do that for each other, but usually it's a friend that's contacted you in the past 10 years or however long it's been. I don't think it's been 10 years. It's been like 4 or 5. And it's basically, I feel like their way of trying to cover their asses of being like, see, it's not just a magical friend of color that comes in at the end and saves the white lead and basically sacrifices everything that she's been working for in her entire life just so that this white girl can live out her dreams. Like, I like Beth. She has some problems, but what can I say? I love a flawed protagonist. But this pissed me off so much. I was like, just whatever. And then speaking of Beth, my next big conflict is Anya Taylor-Joy's acting. It's like, I don't know how to say this because it's like, I don't think she's a bad actress. It's just, someone told me that she was a model before this. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me because, okay, something about the way she acts and the way she acted for like the entirety of the series, it was like she was very aware of the camera the entire time. She obviously knows her angles very well, you know, and I will say she looked great the entirety of the series. Like, she's very beautiful. But every time the camera was on her, it seemed like she was just so aware of the camera. And she was just trying to constantly be like, this is my best angle. Do you see my big, kind of fish-shaped eyes? Oh wow, I think my eye was twitching. Like, I wouldn't say anything, but it like took me out of the scene every single time. Like, she would just like, it's like she doesn't allow herself to just like look bad. And it's like, that really limits you in your character work. Like, in the future, I would love to see Anya Taylor-Joy like play a character that isn't beautiful, basically, or just like gets really intense and aggressive and angry. Basically anything that will have her contort her features in a way that like, that isn't just like posing, you know? Because I've never had this happen to me where I'm watching an actor and I can see like the gears in her mind turning to be like, this is my best angle, this is my best side, this is my good eye. I don't know. Well, she's very symmetrical, so I guess she doesn't really need to think about that kind of stuff. I don't know. Again, y'all can tell me what you think of that, because I know that's kind of an unconventional gripe to have, and I'm open to other opinions about it. And then my final note, it just wasn't gay enough. Like Beth, every time she sleeps with a man in the entirety of the series, it's always shown to be very unfulfilling, or in turn very like mechanical almost, like she's just fulfilling a need. And like, you can even see that in the way she basically just sidelines Benny afterwards. But then she shows a lot of interest in that one French girl. And then when the French girl is like, let's meet up and like, we can go drinking and we'll get some guys or whatever, the next morning, there is not a guy in her bed, but the French model. Homosexuality. But I'm not talking about the model. I'm talking about Jolene. I really think Beth and Jolene should have been lesbians. Like, I know Jolene had her like sugar daddy thing on the side and she could keep him, but just like the actual love relationship with Beth. But yeah, again, it wasn't like that bad. Like, I did finish the series, mainly because it's quarantine and there's nothing else to do. And I kind of have this thing where like, I never finish TV shows. So I kind of like wanted to finish this. Oh God, my